okwogera ku nsonga enkulu emu eri ku mimwa gya bannayuganda nga tusemberedde akaseera ak'akatuubagiro okusalawo obukulembeze bw'eggwanga lino gye busobola okutambuzibwamu, okukyukamu ate n'okukuuma ebirooto bya bannayuganda. Abajjukira obulungi mu mwaka gwa 2022 nga nkulemberedde oluvuganya mu Parliament, natwala bannange ne tubeerako mu kafubo ka nnaku 2 okwogera ku bisoboka okukolebwa okuwa eggwanga lino omukisa okukola ebyobufuzi eby'ekisajja kikulu ebisobola okukuuma eggwanga lino obugagga bwalyo n'okuwa abaana n'abazzukulu omukisa ntusobola okubeera mu ggwanga lino ne tukoleramu ebyobufuzi nga situbikkaanyaako naye ng'eggwanga litambuzibwako ebyo tukaba tukkaanyizaako naddala ebyo ebiri mu mateeka nga bwe gagamba. Mu kafuba ako sitwavaayo na kukkaanya ku kikyakkola, naye twagamba buli muntu agende, buli kibiina, buli gurupu, buli ssekinnoomu agende yeebuze ku bisoboka ate tulabe ekisobola okugenda mu maaso. Okuva olwo wayiseewo ebbanga tusigazizza akaseera katono nnyo, mwaka gumu na myezi 3 okugenda mu kalulu. Nga bwe nategeeza eggwanga mu kiseera ekyo kijja kubeera kya bujega nnyo, kya butafaayo, kya bulagajjavu, ffe abaagala enkyukakyuka okuteekako amataayi n'amakooti ne majetesi ne tugamba tugenze mu kalulu nga tutaddeewo mbeera yonna wawaawo bikyuka mu mateeka agafuga okulonda, mu nkozesa y'obukulembeze ne gye buteekebwawo, ate n'abo abalina obuvunaanyizibwa, ate n'ekisinga obukulu okulinnyisa obuyinza bwa bannayuganda mu kusalawo obukulembeze. Olw'okuba nti wali kyali kikoleddwa mu budde obwo ate nga ne gavumenti emaze ebbanga kali lisusse emyaka 10 ng'esuubiza okuteekawo akakiiko kafuna ebirowoozo bya bannayuganda ku nkyukakyuka mu ssemateeka, ndowooza okulinda okwo twalinda mulimba. Kiseera kituuse ensonga zino tuzeekwatireko ng'ababaka b'abantu. Omulimu gw'omubaka wa Paalamenti ogusinga obukulu ogumuleeta wano okuyisa mateeka, era ssemateeka kituteekako nti omulimu gwaffe omukulu, ekkatala ekkulu kwe kuyisa amateeka agayambako eggwanga okukulemberwa ku kkuba erigoberera amateeka ate n'okutwala eggwanga mu maaso. N'olwekyo nze ne bannanga abalala bajja okuneegattako mu biseera ebijja, tulina ebirowoozo bye twagala bibeere ku mwanjo, bikubaganyizibweko bannayuganda ku nsonga enkulu ze tulowooza nti ziziŋŋamizza ebyobufuzi, ziziŋŋamizza enkulaakulana y'eggwanga, era tufudde basibe ba byabufuzi na bannabyabufuzi. Ensonga ezo ezimu zigenda kubeeramu okukola enkyukakyuka namutaayika mu ssemateeka, okubaako ebijjululwa, okubaako n'ebipya ebireetebwa. Ensonga ze tutagenda okuteeka ku mmeeza nga bwe mwawulira ku Lwokubiri nga ntegeeza Paalamenti nti nze sabbiiti ejja nja kuba ndi mwetegefu nga bampadde olukusa era ngenda kukola enteekateeka nsobole okujja mu Paalamenti, nsabe Paalamenti olukusa nsobole okuleeta amateeka ago. Paalamenti bwe neeba empadde olukusa ate tujja kujja eri gye muli bannayuganda twongere okubeebuuzaako n'okuwa ebiteeso bino omuzinzo ogumala bisobole okuba nga bisobola okuyamba ebyobufuzi byaffe n'okukulaakulana kw'eggwanga. Mu bufunze waliwo ebigenda okukyuka mu ssemateeka, mwe muli okuzzaawo ebisanja ku ebisanja bya President ebyagibwawo mu mwaka gwa 2006 mu nnongosezi zaakolebwa, mwe muli okukendeeza obugazi bwa Paalamenti. Nga bwe nambise twagala Paalamenti ebirimu ababaka nga buli disitulikiti ekiikirirwa omubaka omu ate era nga wavaayo n'omukyalo omu, naye nga tuteesa nti ababaka abakyala abazi disitulikiti balondebwe mu ngeri ya kugabana okusinziira ekibiina obululu bwe kifunye mu ggwanga lyonna kyetwayise proportional representation. Ekyo twandyagadde n'ababaka abalala bonna balondebwe bwe batyo, naye kasooke na kino tubeere ne gye bayita hybrid system, nti waliwo abalondebwa mu nkola gye bayita first past the post ate n'abalondebwa by proportional representation. Tulowooza nti ebyo bwe tubigezesa bijja kuyamba demokulasiya waffe okwongera okunywera n'okukendeeza akatuubagiro k'ebyobufuzi mu bibiina ate ne mu ggwanga lino okutwaliza wamu. Ensonga endala enkulu ensonga y'okugabana obuyinza, ensonga ya federal giyite devolution. Mu kiseera kino obuyinza bwetuumye waggulu ate tebukozesebwa. Tebukozesebwa, bukozesebwa bubi, tebukozesebwa kuyamba ggwanga n'abantu ba Uganda n'ebirooto bye balina eri eggwanga lino. N'olwekyo tulina ebirowoozo bye twagala okuleeta biwulirizibwe, bikubaganyizibweko mu ngeri gye tusobola okutaggulula obuyinza waggulu, budde abantu gye bali babukozese okutuukiriza ebirooto by'eggwanga lino n'ebirooto byabwe. Ensonga endala enkulu y'ensonga y'Abannayuganda ebbanga lino lyonna abadde batakkirizibwa kulonda, abatateekebwangawo mukisa kulonda. Twagala okulebawo enkyukakyuka mu tteeka erifuga kyuka ebyokulonda, tubeere nga tusobola okubeera ne Bannayuganda abali ebweru wa Uganda nga basobola okulonda, ate n'abasibe nga basobola okulonda. Waliwo Munnayuganda omu gwe bayita Kalali Stephen mu mwaka gwa 2018 yatwala gavumenti mu kooti n'akyuka ebyokulonda n'agiwaabira nga yeemulugunya ku basibe ate nga yeemulugunya ne ku Bannayuganda bali ebweru. Kooti n'esalawo eggweye ku nsonga eyo n'egamba kimenya amateeka okubanga abantu abo tebabwe bamukisa kulonda. N'olwekyo tugenda kuleeta ekiteeso ekikola ennongooseza mu tteeka lyakukyuka ebyokulonda babe nga basobola okulonda. Eyo Bannayuganda gye bali ku bitebe bya Uganda ebiringa eyo 45 buli kitebe kisobola okufuuka polling station, n'amakomera buli komera lisobola okufuuka polling station, era buli candidate nga asobola okuteekayo agent we nagenda n'alaba ebivudde mu kulonda, era akikyuka ebyokulonda gasobola okuteekayo alabirira ebyokulonda mu bifo ebyo. Sirowooza nti ekyo kiba tusabye eggwanga kugenda ku mwezi. Kikolebwa mu mawanga agatuliraanye nga Kenya, kikolebwa mu mawanga nga Zambia, mu mawanga nga South Africa. Sirowooza nti kinene nnyo ng'okuggyako obwassemugayaavu n'obutafaayo n'okulowooza nti abantu abamu baddembe okukola bye bakola ne baggalira ebweru abalala. Ekyokulabirako Bannayuganda abali ebweru, ensimbi ze baleeta okukulaakulanya eggwanga zisinga ensimbi ze tujja mu mmwanyi ze tutwala ebweru. Kiba kitegeeza nti omugabo gwabwe mu Uganda munene nnyo, gulina okuweebwa ekitiibwa. So ensonga ezo n'endala zesikonyeeko zetugenda okuteeka mu mabaga ago, era nsuubira sabbiiti eno ng'etandise nja kuwandiikira Oweekitiibwa Sipiika amusabe anzikirize nsobole okuweebwa olukusa okugenda okwebuuza ku Bannayuganda okuleeta amabaga ago. Njagala njogere ku nsonga eyabuuziddwako wano ey'abanywanyi bange banna DP abayita aba DP block. Olunaku lwajjo abagambye nti baagala mbakiikirire mbeere candidate waabwe kuba president. Ekisooka mikwano gyange abo mpangadde nabo mbamanyi, mbategeera bulungi, bakakaalukanyi, balina ebirooto, mbeebaza okundowoozaako mu kiti ekyo. Naye ndi mumativu. Ekisooka obusobozi bwange sirowooza nti bwetaaga okubwako akalulu, naye sirowooza nti ekyo kikusaawa eno y'ensonga gye tulina okusoosowaza. Nja kubasinkana mbasabe sooke tuwe ensonga zino ez'ennongoosereza mu mateeka n'okuteekawo ekisaawe ng'omusambi omu talina firimbi mu mpale nga tajjaawo ggoolo ng'ogenda kuteeba. Tusooke tukwate ku nsonga ezo. Bwe tunaazikolako nkakasa bulungi nti waliwo Bannayuganda abalala abalina ebirooto bwe bityo, ate ffe abavuganya tujja funa n'omukisa okweggalira ewantu tuteese ku nsonga eno enkulu bwetyo, si mu ngeri ya bwannakigwanyize na kweyagaliza, naye mu ngeri y'okukola ekyo ekireeta ddala enkyukakyuka ez'omuggundu n'okuba bannayuganda obukulembeze obw'omuzinzi so si obukulembeze obwaganaaga.
Weesiimye mwattu, oli wa mukisa okukira abalala. Omugugu gw'ebizibu by'ettaka gukutikuddwa Brand Property Services Limited ku lw'ettaka eritaliiko nkaayana. Ennyumba eziwedde okuzimbibwa wamu n'ez'okupangisa, apartments ez'okupangisa wamu n'okugula mu mawanga ag'enjawulo okuli Uganda, Kenya, Bungereza, Dubai, America wamu ne Canada. Okuddaabiriza ennyumba oba ebizimbe byo, property management n'abasaveya abakugu abataakufere. Twekwate ku nsonga zonna ezekuusa ku by'ettaka nga kw'otadde n'okugobera ku kyapa kyo. Kati pazo y'eby'ettaka ebadde kukaluubiriza egonjoddwa bw'okwataganye naffe. Tukubire ku noti 703 noti 79 oba noti 773 noti, oba otusange ku MT House omwaliiro ogusooka room 5 ewazana ku Entebbe Road okuliraana ekizimbe kya Muguluma Empire. Tukyalireko ne ku website yaffe www.brandpro.co.ug. Brand Pro Property Services Limited, tutuukiriza birooto.
I'm here to address a single matter that is awash in the corridors of Parliament and probably other spaces where matters in public space are discussed. So you're very welcome. You recollect that in June 2022, when I was leader of the opposition, I led the opposition political actors, not in Parliament alone, but even outside Parliament, in a 2-day conversation about the possibilities for change, what change heralds and what it takes, and what we needed to do as the opposition to have a chance of causing the desirable change that we thought we are capable of doing. In those 2 days, we made deep reflections of our past failures, of our first trials, the several steps and missteps, the missed opportunities, and we dared to dream. But there was something missing, and we were addressing the elephant in the room: reforms. You recollect that there never was consensus on that day. The minimum to a consensus was that let each group return to their fore and do internal consultation. Probably at the right time, there will be an opportunity to reconvene and address these matters. And you recollect that my party, the NUP, then was even more bold in talking about reforms, in saying it's not necessary. Even a statement was issued by the presidency to that effect. But we said there will be chance. We thought that we'll have occasion to address this in earnest before the elections. This is September 2024, and the Electoral Commission has issued a roadmap. In fact, has started implementing its roadmap. In the 10th Parliament, to which I was a part, the opposition attempted to bring reforms, electoral reforms and constitutional amendments, because sometimes amendments give rise to several amendments of other acts and attendant reforms. Those reforms were being led by the Honorable Nwagaba, and were told we were late. But we were promised instead that within that time we shall have constituted a review commission. In the same 10th Parliament, you recollect that there was an attempt to present names. In fact, names were forwarded to Parliament. But then it was stopped. The process stopped. So there was no commission. So we never had the Constitutional Review Commission. We've never had reforms. We all recollect the nature of the 2021 elections and how they actually were a major setback in our process of democratizing Uganda and propelling a durable constitutional order in this country. The probability of having won based on the last election is second to none. Therefore, I set out, because I've been consulting across peers, actors, individuals about the possibility of reforms. And when we saw nothing coming from government, of course, my old friend Honorable Mao has been speaking often at funerals, in other spaces, on media, about how he intends to bring, reforms. But the fact that we have not had a review commission, it means that the public has never sent Mao. So if he brings any, he'll be bringing his own and his own cohorts, amendments or reforms. I have set out, and I'll be joined by other colleagues in the coming weeks to set out on a process, on a program to bring to Parliament a plethora of amendment bills that will give way to a national conversation on the possibility. You recollect last week, this week actually, on Tuesday, I gave Parliament an oral notice of my intentions. And I promised the country that next week I'll be ready with the first set of my intentions. So next week coming, I'll be able to now formally seek from the Speaker with the way of a written notice to seek leave of Parliament to be able to sponsor a number of bills that will catapult a conversation on possible constitutional amendments and major electoral reforms that, in my view and the view of those I've been consulting with, that will give way to a national conversation, to a better election that can give an idea of a free and fair process. There are three major areas of interest from me in the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution in Article 260, 261, and 262 can be variously amended. So if Parliament allows me, I intend to propose to amend the Constitution with three bills. The first bill will be under Article 260. Article 260 talks about the articles that can be amended with the Parliament and a referendum. The second will be under Article 261, the second bill, those areas that can be amended by Parliament and local governments, district local governments. Then the third bill will be about those areas that can be amended by Parliament alone. My view, which is not a final view, is that if I bring three bills in that structure and form, then we shall be able to take care of the naysayers, those who say we don't have time, because Parliament has time. Local governments have time. If there's no time for a referendum, that there's a question that requires a referendum, then in my proposal, I'll propose that on polling day in 2021, 2026, there will be a ballot box for a referendum question, such that we can save time and resources. Then the government that will be formed will implement the results of the referendum. So that's why I'm proposing 3 bills for amending the Constitution. So when those bills are taken, maybe I could briefly speak about the key areas of amendment. One of the key areas for the Constitution amendment is restoration of term limits. We've spoken about that variously. It's something that I think has bedeviled this nation. Term limits were the minimum consensus of the 95 Constitution. Remember, the predicate of that Constitution was to give this country a chance for the very first time in our history to change leadership through a free and fair process. Because the major failure of the 1967 Constitution was failure to enable the country to transition, to organize free and fair elections, transition from one leader to another. That never happened. So the promise of the 95 Constitution was the possibility of a change through a free and fair election. When that failed, and in 2006, we amended the Constitution and removed term limits, that in effect killed that motivation. It killed the basic structure of that Constitution, and therefore, in my view, as a lawyer and as a politician, from that day we got a new Constitution, which is why it needs a major surgery to restore that promise and give the nation hope that we can actually change leadership. Otherwise, peaceful transfer of power is impossible. And in 2018, again, we tinkered with the Constitution and removed another pillar, which was the age limit. So for me, we need to restore term limits and even entrench them. Not just restore, but entrench them. Because the article that had them was fair weather, Article 105. Now we need to restore them and then even entrench them. The second area I'm looking at in amending the Constitution that will cause amendment to the Presidential Elections Act, the Parliamentary Elections Act, the Electoral Commissions Act, will be in the area. I'm introducing an idea to have a second tier of Parliament, the upper house. And the upper house will be chaired by a deputy president, who in my proposal will be on the ballot with the president. The idea of a president simply appointing a vice president to attend the funerals must stop. We must have a constitutional provision for a deputy president elected on the same day with the president. And I'm proposing the president and the deputy should not come from the same region. We'll chair the upper house, and the upper house, like I'll propose later in detail, will have only 39 members from the original 39 districts before the making of the 95 Constitution. I'll make provision for their purpose and role for the country. Then most importantly, and probably dicey, is reducing the size of Parliament. We're among a burning forest where it is domiciled. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm a Ugandan, desirous of seeing this country transition and move to a better place. The size of Parliament over time has been a major concern for all and sundry, including politicians who care. I am proposing that instead of having county MPs, we shall have a directly elected member of Parliament for each district. Can be a man or a woman, doesn't matter. So currently you'll have only 146 directly elected members of Parliament. Okay? Then we shall retain the women members of Parliament. So then you will have 146 plus 146. plus 10 from the cities. But also I'm proposing that the women members of parliament should be elected by proportional representation. I'm going to put all these ideas in writing and you'll be able to read them and explain to the country. I want us to test the idea of having parliament in a hybrid manner, whereas the direct seats from the district will be elected by universal adult suffrage, the way we do it now, first past the post. For women MPs, I want us to test proportional representation, where for every party that has gotten a vote and in parliament, they will have a chance to have a woman MP in parliament. If you are NUP and you get 50% of the national vote, you should have 50% of the women in parliament. If you are JEMA and you get 10%, I'm not saying JEMA is worth 10%, don't get me wrong. They should have 10% of women in parliament. That is the idea of national building, that you even introduce through legislation, power sharing in parliament. Because the idea of winner takes it all disenfranchises politics, makes it a game of eaters, a game of the powerful, you know. So those proposals and more to take care of the size of parliament. The size will be small, but even more representative of the political views in the country. So that is my proposal on parliament. So for the constitution, there are other ideas I cannot speak about now, they are lengthy, but that's what I will do. There will be amendments. I'm also proposing amendments subsequently, because of the constitutional amendments, to the Presidential Elections Act, to take care of the issues that will arise from amending the constitution. But maybe, very critical, in the Presidential Elections Act, I want us to amend two critical areas. One, in amending remember in 2018, we made an amendment to the Constitution to say that if a candidate is aggrieved after a presidential election, they can go to court. And we enlarge the time available for the candidate to go to court. Okay? Of course, we reduce the appetite of having very little time, and therefore the impossibility of getting to court prepared by enlarging the time available. Now, if you want to take care of the malfeasance that comes with, for example, arresting a candidate, remember the Honorable Kyagulanyi was held indoors under house arrest when he was supposed to go to court. Dr. Besigye in 2016 was held at his residence, was supposed to petition. I want us to amend the Constitution further and the Presidential Elections Act to say that even a registered voter can petition court. Okay, such that the appetite to arrest or detain would-be complainants reduces. Of course, that will come with other issues. I'm proposing, for example, if you're a voter and you want to petition, you must do a security deposit to court, that you don't simply go to petition to waste court's time. It is done in our civil proceedings, so it will not be a new thing in our jurisprudence. That is for petitions. Then secondly, the declaration of results legislation. Right now, when you vote for a president, you see we vote the president and the members of parliament on the same day. In Masaka City, by 6 o'clock, you will have an MP declared, but no president is declared as having won Masaka. So I want us to change the law, because the same returning officer who declares members of parliament can also declare a winning president for a district. And that is closed and the certificate is issued. And what would remain is transmission of results electronically or otherwise to the national center. Meaning that if you're a candidate for president, you don't have to have heartache and ulcers over listening to results from Karamoja when the ones from Kawempe have not yet been read. All you have to collect are 146 DR forms of every district, and you'll know the results declared, probably plus the 10 from the cities. So the declaration of results component is problematic. I doubt anybody sane and sensible will reject that possibility, that we change that, such that, because you have a woman MP declared for the district, that same returning officer has all the results from the district for everybody, including the president. They should be declared there and then. That amendment should come. Then for the elections, Electoral Commission's Amendment Act, I said for all these, there will be a series of consequential amendments of other legislations. The Presidential Elections Act, Parliamentary Elections Act, and the Electoral Commission's Act. Two areas of concern for me to the Electoral Commission's Act. One is amending that act to make provision for diaspora voters. We have over 4 million Ugandans scattered across the diaspora, in estimate. And of the 4, close to 2 million are eligible of voting. I think Uganda has about 44, 45 embassies and missions scattered across. These should be polling centers. Remember, in 2021, the High Court decreed in a matter of Karari Stephen versus Attorney General Electoral Commission. Justice Lydia Mugambe decreed that it was unconstitutional not to make provision for people in the diaspora to vote. She also decreed that it was also unconstitutional not to make provision for prisoners to vote. So I want to propose amendments to the Electoral Commission's Act to make way for the possibility of diaspora people and prisoners to vote. All that was missing is how would they vote? It's not new. They vote in Kenya, they vote in Zambia, they vote in South Africa, in so many other jurisdictions. So we should not be lazy. We should be proactive. It is their right to vote. For example, the people in the diaspora contribute more money through remittances to the country than Uganda's biggest export, which is coffee. So how do you disenfranchise a people that actually sustain the economy to that extent? So Parliament should rise to the occasion and proceed to make provision for the voting of diaspora people and prisoners. Yes, when you're in prison, certain rights are curtailed, but civic rights cannot be curtailed. There are those that can be curtailed. I'm aware that actually in some countries, even conjugal rights are made provision for. Let's begin with civic rights. For starters, the right to vote. So these are very key issues to which I want the country to begin a conversation and make a decision. I want to invite you, when I'm ready next week, I'll lay and share with the country these amendment bills. They may not come on the same day because it's rigorous work. It's rigorous work, it's vigorous. And in the event that Mr. Mao and others have their own bills, we shall meet in the Committee of Parliament and see what they have. There's no contradiction. The job of a member of Parliament, the first call for any member of Parliament is to make laws for the good governance of the country. And this is the call I'm here for. And I want to invite colleagues, members of Parliament, to join me in this call. And I hope from both sides of the House, we should be able to hear from each other and speak to each other about these possibilities. I thank you. endorsing me or whatever it means, I'll have this to say. First of all, I warmly appreciate the kindness of these my old comrades for believing that I am capable of being up there. It's not something I can apologize for. All I can say is that there are so many other Ugandans capable of offering leadership at a higher level. And my humble view is that let's first concentrate on creating an environment that makes it possible for leaders to emerge and compete favorably beyond the self-interest and our desires to be on the ballot paper. It should not be casual. It should not be really a ritual. It should be a serious endeavor. I appreciate them. I will encourage them when I meet them that we can put a lot of energy on these issues, make it possible for a change to happen. Then I have no doubt in my mind that we shall have an opportunity as the opposition, for example, to sit in a quorum like this and agree on our best foot forward and our best bet when time comes. That's what I can say about that. Qualifications for politicians, something I didn't talk about because I thought when I share with the public my written document, people will be able to see my expanded views on governance. One of the proposals for constitutional amendment is to activate the provisions in Schedule 5 of the Constitution that talks about regional governments. When you form regional governments, some of the questions that arise at the center will go to the regions. What's wrong with the country not discussing a possibility of power sharing through advanced devolution? You can call it federalism, you can call it anything else. Once we devolve power from the center to the regions, because probably I will ask a question to the Minister of Local Government in Parliament. What happened to activating Schedule 5 in the Constitution that talks about regional governments? This can take care of some of the problem. I want people to go to their local regions and where possible, have a debate in their vernaculars. There's nothing wrong. And where documents have to be discussed or synthesized in a foreign language, it should be done. But I don't want to say that qualifications are the problem. Okay? Of course, if you are qualified, ordinarily, if you choose to do wrong, it's deliberate, because you know. You have seen professors failing to do mundane things. But I know Ugandans are capable, for example, of deciding, of electing who is capable of being in an upper chamber, in a district council, in a sub-county council. They know all that. I don't want to take away that right, because policy should create room for involvement and participation. And then if people are sensitized well, if the civic education and civic competence rises, then I have no doubt citizens won't put square pegs in round holes. They'll put people where they belong. The Munyonyo conversation, and then majority of opposition don't want. Do you have a census of the majority, my brother?
I was there during that.
No, I'm not referring to that. You said majority of the opposition don't want reforms, and others. Do you have a census?
I talked about the majority of that.
Political leaders. Political leaders are various. Probably a few of us have a microphone to speak. But if you moved out there and spoke to political actors, they're desirous of these reforms. But I'm not blind to the frustration of the political leaders at a higher level. The frustration is obvious because we have had run-ins with the system, the unwillingness to climb down their high horse, to listen to citizens, to listen to their opponents. It's understandable. But tell me, So if you don't want to do this, so where do you want us to go? Are you for armed rebellion? Are you for civil disobedience? Then go for it. The one thing I will not do is simply look on and wait for somebody to come from nowhere and do what I don't know. In my space, I'm only doing what I know. And it's my job to speak convincingly, to speak to the other party, to see a bigger call for national building. I can't run scared that they won't listen. So why am I in parliament? If I'm convinced they cannot listen, so why am I here then? I should stay away. It's my daily duty to speak to people who don't want to listen to me, to compel them to listen to me by raising the bar of the issues, vacate the mundane issues, and then speak to the issues that can sustain our young democracy and give a possibility of a durable constitutional order. It's my job. Whether we believe they won't listen, probably. Because this conversation is not a conversation of politicians alone, and that's the danger. These issues are not issues of politicians alone. Civil society, cultural institutions, religious institutions, even witch doctors must participate in this conversation. This is the conversation of citizens for better governance. It's not a preserve all politicians. Politicians have a duty to lead. They have an obligation to be honest about possibilities. I'm only doing what I believe is feasible. Let the conversation ensue. Let's begin it. If somebody has a higher and better way and a shortcut, I'll join them. Then I think I was elaborate. Probably didn't follow me well. The reference to the upper house is akin to a senate, and the 146 times 2 is the ordinary parliament where I belong now. Okay, that will be the lower house. And if you have 146 from the districts, and then the 146 women plus 10 or thereabout from the cities, that's almost, you get the 550 something we are, you'll make a saving over 200 MPs. In my proposal, I'm even offering a proposal on compensating those that will lose their seats or constituencies. I have a detailed proposal on how those that will surrender their constituencies will be compensated to leave and give way for the country to progress. It is a cost, but a cost, a one-off, and then we shall progress with this a leaner and feasible parliament. In fact, in the constitution, the proposal in the constitutional amendment, I want the numbers to be entrenched in the constitution. To say we shall have a lower house of 300 members of parliament, sealed. The danger is every time you create a district, you end parliament. Parliament should never be allowed to enlarge itself at will. There must be a limit, and that limit should be in the constitution. With a seal, the numbers must be there. Right now, we don't have numbers. Look, if you go to the Kenyan constitution, the Tanzanian constitution, the numbers are right there. They say we shall have a house of these numbers. In Uganda, parliament is about to become the biggest national rally. But between me and you guys are in the gallery, in the media gallery. I don't want to speak about colleagues, but how many register on the Hansard? So we can have a limit enshrined in the constitution. That's my humble view, Vincent. And it is going to be a huge saving to this country if we do that. In the future, if the country's fortunes change economically, then a fresh conversation can ensue on how to enlarge representation. After all, modern constitutional governance evolves. With the changes in the fortunes of the country, we can have a fresher conversation as to the possibilities. You also talked about the runners-up. Yes, I'm making concrete on what should be the fate of the runners-up. The runners-up in the presidential election should lead the opposition in parliament. It's a no-brainer, That will really help a great deal in dealing with a lot of tensions that arise from among parties, but also to allow this leader to come and implement the views in his or her manifesto in Parliament and have them across. You know, it's probably a better idea, because that mandate should have a platform. That mandate from the people should have a platform where it should be appreciated. Ordinary leaders, lack of ideas, the Kenyan model, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about constitutions, not individuals. You know, a constitution is like a shoe. If it doesn't fit you, don't remove the sole. If it doesn't fit you, don't remove the laces. Okay? Once we have a document written, you subscribe, you commit. There's no shortcut. The individuals will always arise with different approaches, but all we need is something durable and dependable. To say you have a deputy president, you cannot fire him or her at will, you know, because there is she or he was on a ballot with you, and therefore you must see, politicians must learn to compromise with each other to work, because you are not working for yourself but for the country. That's the whole idea. But also, in the proposals, I'll have a prime minister who is an actual leader of government business. I'm using the word actual, with purpose. If you're the prime minister and you come to parliament, and you're able to commit, because you're the leader of government business. And even proposing that the prime minister should face a no confidence vote in the house if he fails to execute their mandate, though it is done in modern democracies. Problem with many political actors, they don't want to think. They want to do basic things. We need to delve into some thinking of what we can do to change the fortunes of our politics and our country. If we have the diaspora vote and the prisoners, the ghosts, what? All these are meant to kill some ghosts. And a level of certain civic competence must arise. We cannot be scared of doing good, because among us we have bad people. Let's have the law. Then we shall deal with the consequences of legislation. Because again, we're dealing with the law and individuals. There's no law made to appease political gods. We are enacting a law to give the country a chance to move on a path of democracy and consistency, with the possibility of transitioning regularly without raka. So that's what we're trying to do. And I'm talking about 2 million people. I am trying to get the actual census of prisoners, because they grow every day, with the political prisoners and chicken thieves and rapists. So I'll have the census probably by the end of the week, and then you'll see how many other citizens are being disenfranchised by this. So there is no legal bar. And of course, the court has already given a pronouncement from the 2021 verdict of Justice Lydia Mugambe on the rights of prisoners to vote and the rights of the diaspora to vote. Uganda can't change leadership by elections. My sister, should we all live in fear? Uganda will change. It's our job to change it. Part of the quest to change it is by insisting that legislation should give a possibility of change. My introduction to politics was not by violence. I don't believe in violence. I believe in civil politics. That's what I know. I'm not trying to enact a kind of military war act. No. I'm trying to enact, to make proposals for a democratic order. And I have no doubt in my mind that we have tested as a nation the consequences of a stolen election and what it heralds for the future. I believe with the time we're going to have much more people demanding for free and fair elections. And the best way of dealing with this is giving them a law on which they will lean to make these demands. So let's make the law. We shall deal with election thieves, when that time comes. Age limit, in the proposals to restore the pillars of the 95 Constitution, it's not really something I'm preoccupied with. So once you have term limits, age becomes a no-brainer. At the making of the 1995 Constitution, the thinking was that, you see, you have a president, a head of state, a commander-in-chief, okay, and a head of government. The predicate was that all these powers in one person, even if you are so terrible, the maker thought that at least you last only 2 terms. It was never envisaged that anybody would last all this long, and by the time of their tenure, they would have appointed every justice of the higher courts of record. It never was envisaged. So now we are at this. So if we restore that critical pillar of term limit, then you can deal with the rest, including age. Because it should not be the problem. The problem is an individual entrenching oneself with a glue in the presidency and makes it an impossibility for a change to happen. That should be the preoccupation. Follow-up?
I would just like to get a view of the independence of the Electoral Commission, because in all these...
I'll begin with the last one. I talked about the issues in Schedule 5. That's essentially the whole idea of power sharing, devolution, federalism, call it what. Because as we know, the whole idea of decentralization collapsed in our face. We're only lucky that it did not collapse us as individuals. Decentralization failed. It's a bad test, failed. Therefore, rethinking the governance structure, the governance model of the country is key. And I don't want to believe that it's only Uganda that wants that kind of arrangement. I am aware, I'm alive, so many other parts of this country that actually are desirous of having a component of self-determination in a number of issues. We just had a census, and the results of the census are very telling. And if we have such copycats that we love copying from our former colonial masters, I'll give an example. In Great Britain, an area like Scotland has barely 5 million people, but they have the Scotland Act. Wales, barely the same number. They have the Wales Act, in which power is shared. And those regions deal with the particular matters specific to their environment, to take care of particular, matters of their own, inheritance, history, and take care of their people and their needs in a particular way. These proposals are here, and in our consultations, because after getting leave, then the consultations will ensue from across stakeholders. I'm very sure that the people of Bunyoro will want to have a piece of their wealth. I'm sure the people of Lango, the people of Acholi, everywhere, I'm very sure it's not an issue. But remember, don't forget that during the Odoch Commission that gave rise to the current constitution, over 67% of Ugandans wanted a federal system. So Buganda has, from the last census, close to 15 million people. Why wouldn't you give such a region particular powers to deal with particular matters? Look at the census results, and then you'll be shocked as to what we are missing as a people. And I believe you have Teso has about 3 million people, West Nile 3 million people, close to 4, Acholi 2, Ankole 3, Bunyoro 2, or thereabout. So there's a possibility. This should be a conversation amongst us as citizens as to how our power from the center can be decongested, shared resources, and possibilities across the regions. So an issue of interest, and it's going to be prominent in these amendments. Didas, again, on his things. Didas, we are not legislating for individuals and their preoccupations, Yeah. We don't want to be distracted by preoccupations. People have dreams. But between me and you know that some dreams are hallucinations. Okay? So I don't want to sit here and legislate for a hallucinator. Okay? So I don't want to really mix up things. I am sticking to an idea of making an enduring law that will midwife and take care of this great nation. Okay? Regardless of the hallucinations harbored by individuals. Independence of the EC. The EC is not a building. The EC are humans. They must be compelled. They will be compelled. First things first. Can we have the legislation to which we shall demand of them to comply? Yes, they are. One of the biggest gaps is how they are appointed. Can I hasten to say that I've not taken care of everything you think about? That's very important. I've not taken care of everything. That's why after leave is granted, then Ugandans must be consulted. All stakeholders must be consulted. And in the consultations, you'll be shocked as to how many brilliant ideas people harbor as to how this country should be governed and how power should be exercised.
UgandaEyenkya.